Are you afraid of the dentist? A lot of people are.
Is it safe? Is it safe?
Should take better care of your teeth. You have quite a cavity here. Is it safe?
Look, I tell you, I can't do it.
My name is Jim Bach. I'm your host for Dirty Little Secrets. I wanted to welcome Dr. Richard Weber tonight. He's a dentist. He doesn't look so scary. We're going to ask him a whole bunch of personal questions and make him human so people aren't afraid of dentists, and talk a little bit about the business of dentistry and how to make a buck as a dentist, and how to operate a business based on being a good guy and based on spiritual principles and a nice family man. And I know Richard as a friend of mine, and know that he's a good guy, and I wanted to interview a dentist that was somebody that was a good guy, that has a good family, that's respected in the community, and give you an idea of what the dental business is all about. So, Richard, welcome tonight. It's good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. They might seem ridiculous, and I don't want to embarrass you. If you feel uncomfortable answering anything, just mind your own business. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do want to put you on the spot because I want people to know that you're genuine and you're a good guy. I know you from jiu-jitsu. We both do jiu-jitsu. You're a blue belt now. Congratulations.
You just got it. I don't know if it's fully earned just yet, but I appreciate that.
I'm in awe. I'm right behind you. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your life, your family, that sort of thing. I was reading your website. I was doing a little investigating, and I understand that you wanted to be a dentist since you were like 2 or 3 years old. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the legend goes, the first time I walked in a dental office, I was just completely enamored by the environment, seeing all the lights and the cool instruments and everything, and I fell in love with it at a very young age. And I think if we're being totally honest, I have to give some credit to my mother, and especially my mom. She had her dentist was very kind to her, and it was very helpful for her when she was younger, and so she always kind of reinforced that, kind of positively reinforced it. So I was attracted to it. It was always kind of there in my bones and in the back of my mind. And then once you get to those ages where you start really saying, what am I going to do with my life? Dentistry was always right there. So it was something that just always seemed really cool. And anytime I got into a dental office to shadow or to pour up models or to just any kind of exposure that I got, I just loved it. So I just pursued that. And luckily, when I was in college, I had that in my mind. So I knew what I wanted to study. I knew what I wanted to get out of university, and fortunately I was able to get into dental school right after those 4 years, and it's been really a dream come true. I feel extremely blessed to be able to do what I love.
So let's back up for a second. I know that the dentists that I know, and I've known some guys that are extraordinarily wealthy as dentists, but what seems to be a common thread is that they're from seemingly well-balanced, well-parented families where they've been very nurtured and supported. And I've looked at other areas where doctors, it seems like, I know a lot of MDs. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for almost 20 years. And so I know a lot of doctors, but dentists seem to be a little bit different, where they seem to be more family driven or supported. That's just my observation. I might not know what I'm talking about.
That's an extremely astute observation. One of the core motivators for why I really wanted to be a dentist was I wanted to be able to be in my family's lives in a very day-to-day kind of way. My dad, he's an amazing dad, and he's very supportive. He worked for 27 years at the pharmaceutical company, a lot of traveling, and he provided for us, and we had a great life and great childhood. But he was gone a lot, traveling for business trips, and the more advanced in his career, it seemed the more he was traveling. And that was an influence of me wanting to be in a position where I could be doing something I love in the community that I'm in and active in, and then be there for my kids. That was really big. There's things that you don't know, right? Like oh, dentists, they have off on Wednesdays. They're golfing. They take the week off. When you're also running a business, and there's a lot of hours that go on when you're not clinical, not treating patients. So it's still a lot of hours that are involved, and definitely a lot more than your schedule would allude to. But I'm there every morning when my kids wake up. I'm there every night when they go to bed. I do work some evenings and some weekends. And I do that because I know people are also busy having their lives, and I tell that to my kids. We make the sacrifice as a family because a lot of people are working 9 to 5, 9 to 6. They can't see a normal dental office during the week, so we work the 2 Saturdays a month. We have every Thursday and Tuesday and Thursday we're open till 7 p.m. I only work one of those days, so I work on Thursday till 7 p.m. And it's a beautiful thing. It's really blessed to.
So tell us about your family. I want to talk a little bit about your wife. Tell us about your wife, where you met your wife, and what that's all about. Well, I want to hear. I want to hear about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a whole story unto itself. My wife is she's from France, a small village in the east of France, close to Germany, and she was doing an internship in Mount Laurel, and she was staying with a close family friend whose the husband owned a small internet company, and so she was doing like an internship. It was a lot of seeing American culture and just kind of having a good time during the summer. And I'm 21 at the time, so she's 21 at the time as well. That woman was a French teacher at Lenape High School, and my mom is a French teacher at Seneca High School, so they have to kind of swap every now and again. So my mom is walking past this classroom. Here's this young French girl talking to the other French class, and she's like, "Ooh, I want one of those. Come and talk to my kids at my school." So so my mom actually met my wife first, and my wife went into Seneca and was talking to the kids. And then at the end of it, my mom says, "Oh, look at my family." Pulls out her portfolio of children. I'm one of 6. And she's like, "Oh, this one, he's your age. And he's single." So I'm back from college. I'm back from Rutgers. And I'm talking to my mom. She's like, "Oh, yeah, there's this nice French girl. She was talking to the kids in my class. Like, do you want her number?" And so, yeah. Young French girl, in South Jersey, it's not every day, So I get her number, give the house a call. It was kind of before cell phones were given a call, so I called her house phone. I'm talking to her. I say that I speak 2 languages. I speak English and South Jersey, and so I'm just talking like a 21-year-old bro back from college, and she doesn't understand a word I'm saying. So she puts the lady on the phone, and we arrange a little date. And I picked her up, took her out to Bertucci's dinner, and 13 years and 3 kids later, here we are, still happily married. So
great,
it's
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, you have 3 kids. How old are they?
So I have an 8-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old boy. And we have an 8-month-old little boy too.
Okay,
yeah.
great, yeah.
So It's funny when you're doing the long distance thing because, like all good internships, they have to come to an end at some point. So she flew back. At that time, in her parents' house, they didn't even have the internet. They didn't have the internet lines run to her house. So she goes home and works whatever magic, has like the telephone company come out, run the lines to her parents' house, and before I know it, she's bought a computer, and I'm sitting there talking to her on Skype, and or just a regular webcam at that time. So yeah. Then we went back and forth, and then we were able to have like a nice. She did an internship, and we got together and actually lived together for that full year up in Jersey City. And that was during the second year of dental school, which for anyone wanting to go to dental school, the second year is kind of like the scary year that you always, I dreaded second year of dental school. I'm like a freshman in high school, and I'm like, ooh, second year of dental school, So I just had that whole period of time in my life built up to be kind of afraid of that particular year. And just expecting it to be the worst year ever. You're taking your didactic boards, you're doing like a crazy amount of lab work, the academics is super intense. So I just expected that year to be like a lost year. And it turned out it was actually the best year of my life. So I was like, okay, best year of my life. I was expecting it to be the worst year. Something has to do with this nice lady that I'm living with. So before she went home to France, I took her to Liberty State Park, all nervous. She doesn't know what's going on, and I proposed to her in front of the Statue of Liberty. A little gift from France, and and then she came back on the fiance visa. They had a TV show about it, the 90-Day Fiance. It was that one classic, and we got married actually first in the Tabernacle town hall where my practice is, and and then about half a year later we actually had the big ceremony in France, and it was just magic. It was magical the whole time, really.
Now, I've never had a French girl talk to me, but I guess there's something to it.
It's so I'm married to a French woman. My older brother is married to a French woman. My oldest younger sister is married to a French guy. And the baby of the family is married now to I like to call him respectfully a halfie. He's is like my kids. Actually has the same name as my son. His name's Jack. And she's married to a French guy. So
that's crazy.
I know. So we had that first wedding that we had. It was, oh my gosh, they do it a little different. They go till like 6 a.m. And then you wake up the next day at like 8 a.m. and you keep on going. They party pretty hard. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is a once in a lifetime thing. We're never going to have another French wedding again. 4 French weddings later, it's like it's like old hat at that point. But it's always magic, and it's so much fun.
Very cool. Okay, so let's talk about your kids for a second. Just one topic: candy. You're a dentist. How much candy do your kids get?
So dirty little secrets, right? Before I was a dentist, I was always a person, right? And I got a little bit of a sweet tooth. And I gotta say, my kids definitely have less candy than I had as a kid. They're a little bit intimidated by Sugar Bug Doug because make it the whole thing, and something I could go into a little bit later. But I gotta say, my wife is probably better at regulating the candy. I'd probably be a little bit more relaxed. Like sometimes they're a little bit too afraid of it, and but yeah, no, they don't do much candy. It actually keeps me more honest because when I get that sweet tooth, I'm like, I got to be good for the kids, So we don't do that much candy. My wife, like we still have Easter candy in a drawer, and they just don't have a huge desire for it.
So candy, soda, juices are all sort of very bad dental.
I mean, some of the stuff, it's like, dentists can be scary, but what scares dentists? Talking like gummies, so like the sodas, super high acidity, as well as the sugar content, and when you see it all day, every day, it's something that you try to just like build those good habits. You can't be so restrictive that it makes it like that forbidden fruit, because it kind of increases the desire. So if you have some juice, let's just say, because even juice, pretty acidic and high sugar content, take a little swig of water afterwards. That kind of cleanses some of that stuff out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean we're pretty good, but I got to give my wife more credit than me, even, because
certainly on the front lines, you're going to be a little gun shy or a little nervous. I know for me, I worked in the ER. I was an EMT, and there were situations where I'm working in the ER as a nurse, and somebody would hand me a baby that just had been stuck in a hot tub, just where the skin was peeling off, and it was just heartbreaking. And or a situation where a kid was in a car seat that wasn't fastened in, and just terrible things with children. And my wife thinks I'm insane because I'm such a nervous Nelly. I'm like, oh my God, so I sneak in, I turn the heat down on the thermostat on the hot water heater, so nobody could take a hot shower.
Yeah. Well, because these things, they're real,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's good whenever someone is going to a dentist or to the ER. It's a lot of times what you get from those providers is that they've seen what can happen. They've seen what does happen. So when a dentist looks at an X-ray and there's you see this little dark area at the tip of the root, that's an infection, that could lead to a swelling, and it hasn't hurt, it's never hurt, it's not there's no problem. And meanwhile, in the back of your mind, you're picturing the person who looks exactly like the person in the chair when you're doing your residency, or the day before, and their face is swollen up, or the person who you really advised to get that tooth checked out, and then
it's a bone infection.
It's exactly. It's
MRSA. It's a terrible situation.
Yeah. So, but it does, and I think on the other side of that, it's like you have a little bit of candy for Halloween. It's not going to kill you. Like everything in moderation. So, buckle the seatbelt, do the thing, do the things that you should be doing. Doesn't mean you're not going to get in the car and drive to where you got to go, So it's for us. I think one of the challenges is realizing that we are kind of exposed to a very specific subset of the extremes of what can happen. So, and then it's our duty to spread, let people know, not to scare them, but just to let them know, you really should buckle up, like kids, like. Get dude sit in the booster car seat or whatever. Maybe it's not the cool thing to do, but it's a lot cooler than some of the stuff that you probably end up seeing. So it's part of
I'm
balance.
certainly on the paranoid. My wife accused me of driving like a little old lady. I don't tailgate. I'm really nervous about it. I do text way too much. But I'm so nervous. And if people think you don't tailgate because you're going to hit the person behind you, it's no, because you're going to turn the wheel and you're going to flip the car. And there's so many occasions where I've seen that sort of thing happen, where you're pulling somebody out of a car that just flipped and rolled 7 times.
Yeah.
So anyhow, let's talk about you're a dentist. I'm not saying therefore you're Jewish, okay? But there are a lot of Jewish dentists, okay? Are you Jewish?
Well, I'm half Jewish. So my dad's Jewish. I was raised Catholic. My dad did convert to Catholicism at 57. He retired from a job he had for 27 years and converted within like a 2-week time span. So I definitely love my Jewish roots. I'm exposed to like a different. Kind of grew up in a bicultural way. So I got a little taste of Hanukkah, a little taste of different Jewish holidays. But I'm raised Catholic, so I'm more that, I guess you would say. But that's
So what do you think? We can cut this out if you want. What do you think of the whole God thing? What do you think God is?
So that's something that I think about a lot. I was when I say I was raised Catholic, I was raised very Catholic. My mom is she's a retired school teacher, former principal, and currently she's in a PhD studying Catholic theology. Right, so and I was raised in a very Catholic way. There are a lot of things that I really embraced about it. There's a lot of things that I think, frankly, I might take for granted, like some of the moral code that you get built into you. I've wrestled a little bit with some of the the little specific dogmas and this and that you can kind of bump into. But I believe in God. I believe that that Jesus, the idea of Jesus is that inside of everyone is something that is to be loved, is something that's lovable, and that Jesus, God, loved us all, and so my biggest real deepest connections is that idea of just, if you live by the golden rule, it's probably good policy to not break many of the Ten Commandments, but really the golden rule is the big thing. Jesus kind of was shook things up with his own religion, right? With there's a lot of rules in Judaism. They got books of them, and kind of like big picture. It's, if you just treat other people the way that you would want to be treated, it's all good. You can have a good, you live a good life, and the world could be a more peaceful place. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'd say I am, with my spiritual journey. Yeah. So
I went through some weird stuff. You know what I mean? I as a kid, I spent 2 years at the Fort Lee Christian Home for Children, which was a horror show. Okay, but we went to church every day, and I remember being a kid and praying. And I prayed so much, and I believed so hard that I would ride my bicycle, when I learned how to ride a bicycle, with my eyes closed praying. And that doesn't make a lot of sense, okay? But I did it because I believed so much I was going to be taken care of, okay? And then I stopped believing at one point. And then later in life, I was just sort of a devout atheist, where I was like, there was no way. And I met this guy, and he said, he goes, well, that's just pride. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, what's your, if you think about your definition of God, whatever it is, and you're atheist, what happens if you change your definition of God to something you believe? I go, okay. He goes, think about something that you believe that's sort of pure. And I said, okay, love. He said, you believe in love. He said, well, why don't you change your definition for God to love? Can you do that? And I said, certainly. He goes, tell me, can you do it right now? And I said, sure, okay. God is love. He goes, are you atheist? I was like, oh shit. Because instantly, in a second, I became, a believer, and it was so bizarre that I could just click. It was sort of like an epiphany. It was just a new paradigm opened in my mind, and later in my heart, and then I met some other people along my journey in life, where this guy talked about God, they were best friends, like they played golf together, like that, and then he told me his beliefs, and it was pretty amazing, where he just believed that God moved planets through the solar system and was in charge of everything. And I was talking to him about some fears that I had. I got jammed up. I was working on Wall Street, and I was like, I had left Wall Street, and I was doing some therapy. I was crazy, and the New York District Attorney's Office shows up at my, door. Actually, they called and they said, "Hey, we want to talk to you about, something 5 years ago." I go, "What are you talking?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I was jammed up. I was in trouble." And I met this guy after that, and I was crying myself to sleep. I was afraid of going to jail. It was terrible. It was a bad situation, anyhow, this guy talked about my life sort of being meaningless and not really having purpose, and the idea that he had was that I needed to align my life with what God would have me do. Being more of a giver than a taker. Just my life being none of my business, but of being God's business. And to direct my thoughts and actions as I would believe that God would have me do. And that was such a big, thought process to digest. But what I could latch onto was maybe there are little tiny things I could do by just helping people.
Right.
And not hurting people. And that goes to sort of extremes in my mind because, okay, I'm going to help people, not hurt people. Does that mean that if I need to hurt somebody to help them, I could do that? And so I kind of think about this stuff, like if somebody was sort of raping somebody, I know that wouldn't be good for the person getting raped, and I know it wouldn't be good for the raper, because they would both be in bad situations. So if I needed to hit the guy with a bat, and I haven't been in this situation, I believe in my heart of hearts, faced in a situation like that, I should hit him with a bat, because that would be helpful for him, because he would see the evil of his ways, and it would be helpful for the person that he was hurting. Okay? Now, I don't know if I have the conviction to do that, where they say there was like something evil, like evil, like Hitler, like killing millions of people. Do I have the faith that God would protect me if I killed that person that was doing those evil things? Do I have that commitment to God in my heart? And I'd like one day to believe that, but I also know that sometimes God's voice sounds a lot like mine. Right. In my thought process, where I'm like, God wants me to do this, and I know I'm full of shit. Okay, so I'm sort of early in my spiritual journey, maybe 20, 30 years in, but I know people that are 80, 90 years in to their sort of spiritual journey that have deep beliefs, way deeper than mine, and live like a spiritual existence, 24/7. Where I get distracted, give me $100,000, and all of a sudden I want to buy another Porsche. You know what I mean? Right. I'm stupid. You know what I mean? Where I might, be better off not building up my pride and ego, but also, taking my resources to for the betterment of mankind.
Yeah, I mean, geez, like I think it's hard to live a Western lifestyle, where we, complain that the Starbucks coffee was too cold or too hot, and not to kind of step back and think like, yeah, you could probably give that to someone who really needs it. The people, there's a billion. I think 2 billion people that live on less than $1 a day,
mm-hmm.
And think about you might step over $1 if you if you weren't like if you were in a rush somewhere, right? So I think that there is this like kind of conflict that we all are kind of constantly living. If you have a comfortable life, when there's a lot of people around us, or maybe not immediately around us, and sometimes immediately around us that don't have those same luxuries or privileges. So it's tough. What you say, what's interesting to me is like when someone is saying just do what God would want you to do, kind of assumes that we know how God's thinking, and I think that your humble approach to it, as far as, well, why don't I just do something like a little bit good for someone in the immediate surroundings, right? Like you can't go wrong with that, because that's kind of part of the whole thing. Is it's God put the universe that we know of, right? So maybe there's multiverses out there, and our blip that we're in, this little tiny speck of dust in the grand scheme of things. So if this is all fueled by a grand creator, we don't know. We're fancy monkeys with fancy technology around us, right? So, but I think you can't go wrong with just kind of pausing and thinking about others and just trying to do the right thing. I think there is something built into all people to know what's a basic right from a basic wrong. I think our life and our circumstances and the pressures and the stresses and the feeling of hunger and this and that, like all these survival things, can skew that. We also want to survive, right? So there's that duality that lives in all of us. But I think if we're just trying to do unto others, I think that's why, for me, I kind of cling on to the simplicity of that, because if you could do that, if you could try to be present, one of my favorite expressions, it's like wherever you are, be there. It's like just be present. Try to give yourself to the people that are around you. I think you'll end up doing the right thing, and I think you'll know it because it always comes back. It's like anytime there's two choices, and there's like the easy fix, and then the thing that isn't. It's not what our little sugar brain in the back of our mind, just the immediate gratification, the dopamine monster in there. Anytime we just do the little bit harder thing, the harder thing to do, just seems to work out, and you seem to get positively rewarded for it. That's just been my experience, and it's been consistent enough that I take solace in that fact. And it's good. It's very good for a dentist because there's a lot of competing noise. Just the regular day to day, just the time constraints where you have to be at two places at the same time, and both people have to leave, and you just can't. And you're sitting there fussing over a very, very minute detail that I always I jokingly talk. It's like my dental OCD. It's like just gotta do that because if you don't, and someone's gonna be at home later. It's like it's annoying. So you just gotta fix it, and I don't know. You just gotta be present. Give 100%. Try to do the right thing. Anytime you ever cut a corner, it always comes back and screws you over, and it becomes a bigger thing. And in the healthcare field, we also have that ethical obligation, where you're okay, I have to do my best. I have no choice. I have to do my best because it's the right thing to do. So sometimes having those rigidities makes it a little bit easier because Dr. Weber, this person's on the phone. Dr. Weber, the bathroom got blocked up. Dr. Weber, and you're sitting there focusing on what you're doing, and you just gotta always kind of know what the goal is, and the goal is always the person that you're treating. It doesn't matter what profession. You have to be present, and that is a nice thing about owning a practice is. You have more of that autonomy, there's no one saying you gotta pump out X amount of dentistry or see X number of patients. You can probably, I'll say since so many offices, especially so many of the corporate run juggernaut offices out there that. People probably don't even know that it's a big corporate entity because it's backyard best friend dental, and they have these there's quotas for a lot of practices. And what if you don't have that need there? Well, then things can get kind of ethically fuzzy. Would be the nicest way to say it, or. Earn a profession, a reputation that is sometimes well deserved, sometimes not. So like I have a lot of patients that come to me for a second opinion, and the only thing I could do is just say the truth, like say what I see, try not, you don't like badmouth other offices, because the reality of it is I've looked at dentistry that is maybe not ideal, and it's like, no, we got to fix that, and it's like, okay, and then Miss Smith, open up, and they open up like 1 centimeter, like open up all the way. It's like, I am. And you're like, oh man, and then all of a sudden you start to realize, well, maybe there was a reason that this dentistry was very difficult to do in the textbook way, like patient factors kind of thing. So you don't throw another provider under the bus or anything like that, but all I could do is be honest and say what I see, and if I do that, and fortunately we have all these like cameras, we can take a picture, so it's not like you don't even have to believe me. You just, if I could see it, you could see it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the solutions. So yeah, it's definitely a guiding principle as far as like just if you could be ethical and treat people right and treat people the way you want to be treated, you can't go wrong.
Okay. Let me ask you a bunch of questions. I think everybody, not everybody, but I've had questions about dentistry. I've had questions about dentistry or dentist procedures or dental procedures that I just, I don't have anybody to ask. I mean, it's not like I'm going to call and make an appointment and go, hey, what happens if you fall off your bicycle or motorcycle and your teeth are on the ground? Do I pick them up and bring them to the dentist? I mean, what happens in a situation like that where there's trauma, a car accident, and your tooth is knocked out? Tell us what do people do?
Well, in that specific example, I would say probably get to a safe. If you're knocked out on the highway, get to a safe spot, right? But it's like the classic thing is like at the baseball field. Like a tooth gets knocked out. There's it's funny. In dental school, they say someone avulses a tooth, like knocks like the whole tooth out. Put it in Hank's balanced salt solution. It's like we're all rolling around with Hank's balanced salt solution, So you could put it in milk, right? So like just put it in milk and bring it, like, get to a dentist as soon as you can. If an entire root has gotten knocked out, a lot of times you can like reimplant it, and then you fix it to the neighbor teeth with like an ortho wire, kind of like bonded in. And a lot of times it'll grow, it'll like reattach. Sometimes it leads to other problems down the road. So I tell people like normally there's a truce between like tooth roots and bone, because bone is constantly turning over and regenerating and replenishing itself, and osteoclast and osteoblast and all that stuff. But teeth, no. Like once your tooth development is done, you got the enamel that you're going to have, you got the dentin you're going to have, you got the cementum you're going to have, you got your tooth anatomy doesn't really, the hard part of the tooth is the same. So when there's some kind of like trauma, and it doesn't even have to be as extreme as like having a tooth knocked out and reimplanted, but if you got bopped into the tooth, one of the things that can happen is the tooth could become ankylosed. So that truce gets broken and the tooth like fuses to the bone. So everyone's teeth have, like, even perfectly healthy teeth have a little bit of movement to them, but when it gets fused to the bone, it doesn't move at all. It almost becomes more like a dental implant, where it's just like integrated into the bone. So anytime there's trauma, just save the piece that you have, and if you have some milk, put it in milk. If it's in a clean environment, you could actually put the piece of the tooth like in your mouth, like in your cheek, believe it or not. So probably not going to be a very clean environment realistically, so I would just put it in some milk. They say the reason that you don't want to just put it in water is because water compared to like the teeth is like more hypotonic. So it's just ideal to put it in like a more balanced salt solution, like Hank came up with. So yeah, but if a segment of the tooth breaks off, so like you fracture. We actually just today had a young man who fractured like half his whole front tooth in half. It's like, oh my gosh, he's gonna have to deal with this probably he's gonna have to deal with it for the rest of his life, realistically. But if you have that segment, sometimes they line up so perfect that you could actually bond that actual segment together. But yeah, a tooth trauma, it's a good reminder. People that have had like dental issues, people that are more prone to cavities, I'm going to say just more prone to cavities, because if that's the case, you know about it at a young age, right? Something that's crazy to me. It's just, I always say, if people ever want some hard proof that life just isn't really fair, like life is good, but it's not always fair, look no farther than someone's mouth, right? Because we get some of our most important, I would say our most important teeth, our very front teeth, the dead center, and our 6-year-old molars, 6, 7 years old, in that ballpark. And they did a study, the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry did a study to see at what age do kids have the manual dexterity to properly brush their teeth, to like get all the plaque off all their teeth, right? And just the age is shocking. It was 10 years old.
Really?
10 years old. So, I mean, if you're brushing so that means you should be brushing your 10-year-old's teeth, in theory, right? I would have gotten beat up certainly by my older brother, if I was like, "Mommy, could you brush my teeth?" But that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So so some people have dental issues like from a very early age, and cavities, dental visits, and and other people, not a thing, right? Like, I never had a cavity, right? Oh yeah, every time I go to the dentist, it's like I get a little like ribbon. I get the no cavity club, and I get the sticker and the balloon, and like I love going to the dentist. Why is anyone afraid of the dentist? It's like the funnest place in the world.
Let's talk about that, because I think I did a little research on before having you in here that somewhere between 10 and 20 people are percent of the people, between 10 and 20% of the population are very afraid of going to the dentist. And I don't think that movie Marathon Man did the dental industry any favors. If you haven't seen that movie, don't. But one of the purposes is to sort of alleviate fears that people, of having you in here, to alleviate fears of the dentist. But there are so many people that are afraid. I think there's two issues in my mind. One is embarrassment. There's a lot of pride. I think pride runs the world in many respects. But many people are embarrassed because of the condition of their teeth or their breath. Or they're just afraid because it's going to be painful. It is. It's not. It's not a pleasurable experience getting poked around or drilled or scraped. What do you do to help alleviate the fears or the embarrassment?
Yeah. So you say like 10 to 15%.
10, 20%. It's a lot. It's a fair number of people.
In my experience, that's conservative. That's a conservative estimate.
Really?
And it might be a little skewed because we have, and I say appreciatively and humbly, but like we've developed a reputation for just being good with patients who are anxious about the dentist. So if it's an emotional connection to what they're anxious about, in some ways that's, I don't want to say it's an easy one for me, but I'm like, me and all of my team, like, we are so non-judgmental, right? Like I tell people this all the time, like, there's there's nothing that you can show me that I haven't seen in my own family. Like there's no judgment, and I make that very clear. And it's not to unvalidate what someone's feeling. What they're feeling is very real. But the good thing is like they're taking the first steps to addressing whatever that concern is. And if you take something like bad breath, right? There's the embarrassment of it, and then there's also this like gnawing something's not right, like there's something being communicated by my body, and so there's like that, like, well, what is it? Like nervousness, there's multiple aspects to it. So they don't train you in very much like a behavioral therapy type of stuff in dental school, but if you are an empathetic person and if you can understand like what people are going through, and at least like compassionately express that you're at the right spot. Like we're first off, we're never going to judge you. Second of all, like you're taking the first step to fixing whatever problem it might be, or to getting the information for whatever problem it might be. So it's you have to listen to people. You have to connect with them. You have to listen. I can't say listen enough, right? Like you just, my older brother used to tell me this at a young age. I used to be like, I don't understand like why somebody would do that. He's like, if you just listen to them, people will tell you. Just listen. So you listen and you relate what your findings are back to the patient, with first focusing on what their like main concern is, as much as they've expressed. That's another thing. Is sometimes somebody might be embarrassed, but because of the pride or because of the whatever, it might not come off as embarrassment. It might come off as hostility. It might come off as like just being kind of quiet. You might, teeth, dentistry. I'm not gonna say it's easy. Like you become obsessively passionate about it, and things that used to be very difficult become a lot easier. So, but overall, the teeth part gets easier, but people are complicated, right? And someone comes in, Mr. Jones, you have 3 cavities. What? My last dentist didn't say anything. I've been going to that person for 50 years. What are you talking about? Miss Smith, you have 3 cavities. Okay, let's fix them. Right? Like the same piece of information is related. Mm-hmm. The same photographs, the same radiographs, the same, like everything's the same. If you say it the same, you're going to get 2 wildly different reactions, and that's something that is that's the hard part. So you just have to listen to people, try to communicate, relating things back to them, like how what their concern is. Somebody has periodontal disease. Let's just say somebody has periodontal disease, and their main concern is their bad breath. So, no matter what, you want to try to address their periodontal disease, but you might be relating it with the focus on how it's going to improve.
What is periodontal? Is that like an infection, or is it just a condition that I don't know what it is?
Yeah. No, it's a great question.
Is it halitosis? I heard of halitosis. I don't know what it sounds. It sounds disgusting.
Yeah. So halitosis is just the fancy Nancy word for bad breath. There's a lot of different causes of it. Periodontal disease is one of them. But so is acid reflux, so is tonsil stones. There's a lot of...
Well, that's a big TikTok topic, tonsil stones videos, which I wasn't aware of, but they seem, kind of gross.
Some Reddit subthread, I'm sure. But periodontal disease is when your body is losing bone,
okay,
and it is because you have ultimately plaque and then calculus or tartar that goes under the gums, and it's actually it's partly related to like your immune response. The way that I describe it to people is like, so if it's been a while, whatever you do for your cleaning, you get that tartar that builds up, right? That hard stuff that doesn't come off and you're picking at it. So that starts to go under your gums, and it's kind of like it's hard. It's like a barnacle. It's like stuck on there. So as it goes underneath your gums, it's filled with, there's like bacteria in there and all kinds of like there's calcified and it's all kinds of stuff in there. But your gums, have like the blood vessels in there and everything. So your immune system is trying to fight this stuff that's on there that it's never going to win against. So your immune system's throwing its cytokines and all these different things to try to break this thing down. The bacteria, it's throwing its endotoxins out there, and your gums pretty much are no man's land, somewhere between France line controlled and German line controlled, and no man's land is getting beat to heck, and that's what is happening in your gums, and the net effect is that the bone starts to erode away, and you get tooth loosening, and it's actually the number one reason that adults over the age of 65 lose their teeth.
Okay, now I have a million questions. Okay, okay. It used to be, 30 years ago, I'd go get my teeth cleaned. They'd scrape it. It would be, and it would be bloody. It would be painful. And then maybe 12, 15 years ago, all of a sudden it was like they scrape a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're sticking like a power washer in there. And you hear, what the hell's the difference? What are they doing now? Nobody ever explained it. They just started doing it, and it was like a new experience.
Yeah. So that's a Cavitron. It's an ultrasonic. Like it vibrates like crazy, fast, and it's much more efficient.
Is it a laser? What is it?
It's a piece of metal, and shaped like one of those Explorer or one of those scaling instruments. But just picture like the scaling instrument. If you're able to vibrate it like a bajillion times a second, right? So it just knocks the tartar off. The same way that the ultrasonic vibrations when you're doing a sterilization process, you put it in that solution, it's like vibrates the water, just knocks the stuff off a lot more efficiently. So it cleans it off a lot more efficiently, and then the water is actually there to keep everything cool, so that you don't get this little thing all hot and burn the heck out of someone or burn their tooth. So there's all this water flowing, and it flushes stuff out, and it does other good stuff too. But yeah, that's something that just this idea that you work in the ER. I mean, if I spend 4 hours in the ER a year, right? That means like some event happened in my life. If someone goes to the dentist, for their normal 2 cleanings a year, they spent 2 hours in a dental office in that year. You spend however many hours you work a week. I spend every waking hour, in a dental office. These environments just become so normalized to us, but they're weird places. The dental, I live in a dental office practically.
Okay, so I've got a million questions right now. You made me think of so many questions. Okay, so we covered, here, let me ask something very stupid, okay? And my wife, I'm going to say this for my wife, because a lot of times I open my mouth and she goes, "You are so stupid." Okay, and I have to do something for her, very special. We were talking a lot about tartar, right? So when you have fish and chips, do you order tartar sauce doing what you do for a living? How gross is that?
So you'll be happy to know that different kinds of tartar, and I love a little tata sauce, with my fish and chips. Oh yeah.
So Kayla, that one's for you. Love you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about children's dentistry. What is your practice mostly? Is it family? Is it children, adults?
So we
geriatric.
So we have a very wide range that we'll treat. So we pretty much 2 to 102, right? That's the unofficial kind of line, as far as. at certain young ages, you're actually recommended to take your child to the dentist. The American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry says at 6 months, the first teeth appearing, not later than 1 year, right? So that's like when the first dental visit is supposed to happen. So I'm like pediatric dentists. I love my pediatric dentist. There's actually a new guy who opened up in Voorhees, Dr. Dan Dinowitz. He has an awesome practice and really good guy. But I'm not going to do a very effective exam on a 6-month-old, right? I'm lucky if I can look in my own 6-month-old's mouth, right? So
while we're there. There's a lot of talk nowadays, and my wife would be an expert, and she should be asking these questions. But as far as ties, I know a lot of kids nowadays, and if I think back of my childhood, there's a lot of, it's not a stutter, but it's like they can't utilize their tongue fully to articulate words, where nowadays apparently they snip something like a little thing under your tongue that allows you to stick your tongue out a little bit further and enunciate words and more adequately process and digest your food. And as a dentist, is this something that you've been educated on, or?
So we didn't get a great deal of that in dental school per se. I mean, that's the lingual frenum that's underneath there. It pretty much keeps your tongue so you don't swallow it. Keeps your tongue rooted in your mouth, and sometimes the attachment is very tight, and it does interfere with speech. It could interfere with like an infant latching. So it's something that we're aware of. I'm more educated on it just based on like. I studied a lot about like the airway, right? We look in one of 2 airways, so we can we're a great screening tool for sleep apnea. Tongue ties is something that, frankly, it might be a little over-diagnosed right now. There's like ebbs and flows in the medical world, so. Sometimes more things are being attributed to tongue ties than might be firmly supported in the literature, which could be the literature's delay, or it could be a little bit of reading into some findings as well. So kind of like the routine accepted things are, if you have a tongue tie at a young age and it impedes latching. That's going to be recognized pretty early, and sometimes the like an oral surgeon will go right up to the room that the mother's in, and they'll do a little snip right there. Not even necessarily use anesthetic, right? Just like a little.
Well, I never even heard of it until my wife was educating me on this, because one of our kids had an issue, and at first I thought it was kind of bullshit. She is on the ball with everything. She is 10 times smarter than I ever could be, and more in tune with like child-led weaning. She's got a lot of stuff going on, and she just never forgets anything. But what I in hindsight, after she educated me on this, I remember like a kid that I've known. Well, he's not a kid anymore. I've known him for 40 years, but he has had a speech impediment. Because of a tongue tie, and I notice it now, and I can pick it out in people just meeting them that are any age, and I know like one of my child's friends has it, and I wanted to say something, but how do you say something to the parent? You know what I mean? But my wife was like, oh, she sees it, and I was like, I had no idea.
Well, if you think about how many sounds we make by bringing our tongue towards the roof of our mouth, or just forward, your S's, your TH's, anything where your tongue needs to go forward, and it's something that's like holding your tongue back, it's going to make a little gap, a little space. So speech pathologists are typically very well trained in recognizing tongue ties and how that could impact speech. That's a very big one. We can take for granted if you have normal tongue mobility, you can take for granted some of the things that our tongue does. Just like clearing food off your teeth, right? So there's a lot that having your tongue like not be able to move that much can do. So it is it's a real thing. There's all kinds of procedures like they can laser it, they can cut it, they can sometimes have to suture it. Some there's a lot of talk about like a posterior tongue tie and so you see all extremes. But another way that you could recognize it is if someone like sticks their tongue out and it kind of gets pulled down, even like dimples a little bit in the middle. That's a tongue tie you should probably have looked at, because that's it has a lot of implications to it for sure. And anytime there's like a speech issue, that's something that should be looked at, that should be evaluated. Not that that's the cause of all speech issues, but the French say they talk from their throat a lot more. They're more guttural, right? It's a little, rolling your R's like. So they say that Americans, we speak like we have a potato in our mouth because everything's it's all in the mouth, right? So we if you can't move your tongue around, it's going to have a lot of implications.
Okay, another question. The pH balance in your mouth, I don't know anything about it, but I would imagine that there are differences in beverages that people drink. So let's talk about what is not going to be good for your teeth in a general sense. So, from an uneducated dental person, I would think that it's sort of the extremes, maybe orange juice, soda, diet soda, coffee, milk. What is your take on those beverages or other beverages, and what should you do? Should you brush your teeth after you drink a beverage, or should you rinse with water? Or
these are such great questions. I am particularly passionate about acidity, right? So our mouth and our teeth are designed to be in a certain more balanced, neutral pH level. The enamel on our teeth, so a balanced pH being 7, right? Enamel will start to become demineralized at a pH of 5.5, which is not crazy acidic. The layer
is that orange juice?
Orange juice is lower than that. Orange juice is definitely lower than that.
Okay, so if you're drinking orange juice and your kid's going to bed after drinking orange juice, there's going to be an issue with the teeth.
Yeah. I mean, in reality, the last thing that you should do before your head hits that pillow is your oral care. So you should never go to bed having eaten anything really, or drinking anything except water. So if you're going to have any juice or anything like that, and it's not going to keep you up at night, have that before you've brushed your teeth. Now the timeline is actually significant. So. Our saliva, the saliva is everything, right? So we'll just drink some orange juice. Your teeth are actively they're losing minerals. Your saliva comes in and it does two things. It neutralizes that pH, so it brings it back up to a nice even 7, and then it also remineralizes the teeth. So it'll put the minerals back in. So if you're not doing that all the time, if you're not having constant, if that's not your only drink, even without rinsing your mouth right away with water, which is a good thing to do, and if you have juice as a regular part of your diet, you definitely should rinse right afterwards. But your saliva will neutralize that. What my crusade is against is the energy drinks, because their pHs are like stomach acid, ridiculous. And I have patients that come into my office, 13 years old, that have almost no enamel left. And coming back to what I said before, the hard tissue structures that you get of your teeth, you only get one. So if you've lost your enamel, and your enamel is like hair, it doesn't have any nerve endings in it. I could drill a little piece of your enamel away and you wouldn't even feel it, not being numb, right, or being not numb. So you lose that. Now you got the layer underneath, which is called dentin, hypersensitive, demineralizes at a much higher pH, so it takes even less to dissolve that. 6.5, it'll start to demineralize. So I see kids, they got into energy drinks between cleaning appointments, and I'm like, oh my good Lord, look, my heart breaks. Because these are things that any kid, there's no regulations on it. You can just go and buy as many Monster Energy drinks as you want.
Well, I saw something, I don't know if it was on cable or, on the internet, but it was Mountain Dew teeth.
Yeah.
Someone did a special on kids that drink Mountain Dew, and it was the worst thing you've ever seen in your life.
It's a sin. It's a sin. Now, if you're... So this is kind of why they want to have kids get into the dentist so young, right? Because there's some education out there, but realistically, you get your dental habits from whatever your parents tell you, and if you were lucky, you had an assembly that a dentist came in or something like that. My kids, I go into their classes, right? I give a little spiel about Sugarbug Doug and everything, and but you get your that's again coming back to life not being fair, right? So you get this start with your teeth because your parents do the best they can, right? Everyone's doing the best they can, so they tell you what they know. Most people didn't go to dental school or hygiene school, or dental assisting school, right? So it's not like I don't remember the class I took in elementary school about how to properly clean your teeth. It's like every sitcom gets a dental special, and you get an assembly here and there, but So when it comes to, I lost my track of thought for a second there. What was the original question?
We're talking a little bit about. You talked about enamel with teeth. You talked about beverages with teeth, the acidity with teeth.
You were saying
the Mountain Dew teeth.
The Mountain Dew teeth. Okay, yeah. So. The Mountain Dew teeth. So some of that is you hope that parents are kind of instilling some of that because Coca-Cola, Mountain Dew. My big thing is the energy drinks right now because and it's the same thing with Mountain Dew and any kind of caffeinated carbonated beverage, right? You're just those were made to destroy teeth. Teeth are very hyper susceptible to acidity, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the most mineralized things in our body, right? So it just I can oftentimes detect clear signs of acid reflux, bulimia, people sucking on lemons. You'll see women if they have a bad a lot of regurgitation during their pregnancy. You'll see the differences in that short window. You see these things. So the fact that they're acidic, they're caffeinated, they're loaded with sugar, they're addictive, and they're sold to my 8-year-old, my 6-year-old. And if he could walk yet, my 8-month-old could go into a store, and if he had the cash for it, could buy whatever beverage they can, and that is irreversible damage, irreversible lifelong damage that is going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars throughout the course of their life, a ton of pain and suffering. You drink something cold now, it's sensitive because you don't have enamel in your teeth. Right, and happened in an abrupt period of time. So it's you don't have any time for your body to adapt. So, in my personal and professional opinion, there should be warning labels, and they really shouldn't be able to sell certain beverages to kids. It's just not fair. They don't know. And I feel like the dental community has done a pretty good job of educating people on, brush your teeth twice a day and floss at least once a day, right? Because cavities, sugar causes cavities. That's kind of we take that piece of information for granted, I think, like a general population. And even like, with all the toothpaste commercials, like gingivitis, these are all things that we've gotten the word out there for. But teeth being destroyed from acidity, the average person doesn't know until it's after the fact.
Would that explain where a sweet, having like a chocolate would make your teeth hurt, or a cold or hot beverage?
So this is getting super nerdy, and I love it. So the nerdier I can get, the happier I get. But so what you're talking about is just tooth sensitivity, and there's a lot of things that can cause tooth sensitivity. But essentially, yes. The short answer is yes. Any part of your tooth that is not coated with the enamel. So if you've lost enamel, and that could be from grinding your teeth down, that could be from acidity exposure, that could be from a lot of different things, or if your gums recede and now you have your root exposed, which is probably the most common place that people end up experiencing that like sensitivity, especially if you have a cavity. It's not always sensitive. I would say it's usually not sensitive. That's one of the problems, and one of the challenges of being a dentist is that you're treating asymptomatic conditions that are there, but they don't have symptoms until they get to that next stage where you're aggravating like the nerve of the tooth in some way. So enamel is, for lack of a better word, it's like hair, right? So, is your hair dead? I guess you can kind of say so, but
is there an artificial enamel? Can you get your teeth dipped or coated or something like that?
So no.
Electroplated?
Yeah, that would be. Hey, you might be onto something, But there's, the idea of fluoride is it binds to. Our teeth are very mineralized. That's hydroxyapatite. So if you look at like the little chemistry diagram, it's a little line with an OH on it, right? So fluoride has a very high bond to that group. It actually kicks off some of the OH and replaces it with F, with the fluoride.
Well, hold on a second. I don't mean to cut you off. For the audience who's starting to sort of lose it, okay, not only are dentists very, very smart, it's intensely competitive to get into dental school, but Rich graduated at the top of his dental class. I found that on the internet. So continue. If I start dozing over, it's not because I'm not interested. I'm very interested. It's just that the chemistry. I wasn't very good in chemistry.
But that was my weak point also. But this is so the bottom line is the fluoride attaches to the tooth and kind of becomes a little bit like that force field, because that fluoride, that fluoroapatite is it's much more resistant to acidity. So that's kind of the closest thing that we have to that idea of electroplating a tooth. And then as far as enamel replacement, that's where I come in, right? Where I'm using bonding materials, I'm using composite materials and porcelain crowns and veneers, and so you don't get any enamel back. That we don't.
Okay. So here, let me. I'm going to ask you some questions that I think are going to be very relevant to the world today. I think there's a certain class of the population, me included, that were basically raised by wolves, that got very poor dental instruction, and maybe it was because I grew up in the '60s. And it was what it was.
Different, yeah.
There was certainly, I was lucky to have a toothbrush, okay? And it wasn't, mandated that I brush my teeth, except for, before I went to the dentist. That was the only time that my mother ever said, you have to brush your teeth.
She's going to get busted, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I see, and it's, not necessarily my age, because I'm 63, but I see some people I know that are in their 40s and 50s that are making a very good living now, that are embarrassed about their teeth, and they seem to go one of two directions. And I think there's a population out there that has a lot of unanswered questions, because I'm in that population where they're seriously considering either getting enamels, they're getting implants. Some of them have gotten bonded. Some obviously they tried with the teeth cleaning, but they've got some missing teeth. They've got some other issues. They've had some bridges. They've had what's that called? Where they stick the wire in, and it goes zzz, and they pull it in and out.
Root canal.
Yeah, root canal. Those are fun. But what? Just maybe 5 minutes or so about the alternatives for you have a 50-year-old that sort of neglected themselves. Maybe they were afraid of the dentist. They didn't get the best sort of care over the years. But now they're worth $1 million, and they don't know what to do with their teeth. And it's sort of embarrassing to go in and talk to a professional, even though they're a professional. What's the difference between bonding, enamels, implants? There's different types of implants. Apparently, from my Facebook ads that come up, I was talking to my wife about implants one day, and all of a sudden Facebook was suggesting I get implants. But and it seems to be that you don't need to be missing your whole mouth in order to get implants nowadays. I don't know. And then there's some talk about why get it in the U.S. when you can fly to Costa Rica and get it done for $6. So I'm just opening the door because that seems to be a question that comes up fairly frequently, because I don't generally talk to my friends about dentistry ever or their medical conditions, even though I'm in the medical field. But I do have a lot of people I've spoken to in the last 5 years that have gotten significant, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of dental work, and they bring that up because it was expensive. Right. And all of a sudden we're talking about something that hasn't been talked about before, and they're certainly not professionals. And I've been afraid, and I think most people are, do they really want to bridge this topic with their dentist? And does the dentist have more than 4 minutes to discuss this? Or is it going to be just, okay, well, let's make an appointment for a consultation and estimate, and it's like, I don't really want to do that. I want to just know the basics. So maybe you can give us a little overview of those topics to help people understand what their options might be.
Yeah, so that's a lot. These are great questions, and essentially, it kind of starts off with how do you start this journey of educating yourself out there with what are the options, what to do, what exists, and it's tough because you go to the internet and you hear you see and hear
everybody's
all kinds
selling
of crazy
something.
Things. Everyone's selling something. So the caution that I would have about just kind of going out there and seeing what's out there is that all these things that you just talked about, implants, veneers, crowns, bridges, root canals, these are all treatment options. These are all not even treatment options. These are just treatments which exist, right? So a big part of what you're talking about is essentially, well, what's going to make the most sense for the individual?
Well, so, I think people want to be good looking. Really, the bottom line is, one, I don't want my teeth to hurt.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to be able to chew a piece of steak.
Function. Yeah.
Okay.
Function, aesthetics. Yeah.
Okay. And I want to look good.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are so that's a kind of assuming someone's recognizing they have some issues, and So I mean, just to kind of hit on your points, right? So bonding is a composite. It's it's usually done chair side, like at the dentist office, and it's a filling material. It's usually the most conservative option as far as taking tooth structure away, and it's the weakest option as far as the strength of it and the longevity of it. So that's kind of bonding or a composite material. And this is kind of going with a, say someone needs to fix their front teeth, right? Their front 6 teeth, the social 6, right? As we call them in dentistry. And then there's something like a veneer, where it's a little bit more aggressive. You're taking away more tooth structure. There are advertisements, and there are some things that are like no prep veneers, which exist, but it's very case selective. Very, it has to make sense because you're not taking anything away, yet you're adding. So there has to be room for you to add. So usually you have to take away some of the enamel, some of the tooth structure in order to put something on. So veneers covers the front part of the tooth, and it's porcelain, and they can look very beautiful, but they are technique sensitive. You have to make sure you're at the right office doing it, and that they know what they're doing, and know it, like you're not trying to get like upsold to veneers, right? And then the next level from that is crowns, which crowns is a 360 degree reduction of the tooth, and you're putting something over top of it. You'll hear it called caps. People usually call them caps. It goes over the whole tooth. That is going to be more aggressive than a veneer, and that would make sense if your teeth are very dark and you want them to be very light. You might need to do a crown as opposed to a veneer to get the shade change that you're looking for. I would say if it's just for a cosmetic purpose, less is best, right? Nothing's as good as the stuff that God gave you, right? So in my thinking, I'm balancing these things out, right? From like least aggressive to most aggressive. You heard me rant for a bit there. I love me some enamel. I love me some good tooth structure, and if we can keep your natural teeth, that's going to be a win. Teeth can have a lot of baggage with them, right? So if you need to do a root canal buildup and crown, throw on some extra procedures, periodontist has to get involved for crown lengthening and this and that. Well, okay, now we're kind of stepping into the implant territory, where as an implant, you either have to have your tooth removed, or trying to fix the tooth is so unpredictable that like you might try to fix it, but there's just not enough tooth there left to fix. So you're better off having the tooth removed and replaced with a dental implant, which is a titanium post that goes into the jaw bone, and it integrates. And you get then you have a connector piece, and then a tooth that goes over top of it. Sometimes people they're already missing the teeth, and they want to have them replaced. Implants again kind of come in. What exists with implants is also so varied. So people come in all the time, and they're like, I tell them, this tooth broke, and I need to get it pulled. I want an implant. Okay, so we could do that. It's very broken down. The traditional route is you have to take the tooth out, do a bone graft at the time, let that heal, then come back. 3-4 months later, place the dental implant, let that heal, come back 3 to 4 months later. Then you start actually getting into the tooth part, the part that people are interested in. So you got like a 6 to 8 or 9 month journey to get your tooth, right? So because you're waiting for bone healing. But what about the teeth in the day? You walk in, slap them in, slap them out. Yes, that's true. That exists. That's something that is a treatment option if you need to have all of your teeth replaced, right? So what I would caution people about is you never know about the problems of something until after you're dealing with it. So one of my jobs is to try to understand if someone wants veneers, if someone wants crowns, like if someone wants all their teeth replaced in a day, they don't know what they're asking for. Is the truth of the matter. Maybe they saw the internet and they know the benefit. They know the net result is like, I'm gonna have all my teeth done, and I'm not gonna have to do it for it's just gonna be a day.
So what are the problems? So let's talk very quickly. If somebody has look at them and it's like, whoa, and they haven't taken care of their teeth in 30 years. And they're broken, and the guy's missing 9 teeth, and he can't chew food, and he's
the teeth are shot essentially. It's like they all got to come out, and So you have so this is kind of least expensive to most expensive. So the full denture, right? So all your teeth are out, and you have someone comes in and out, and you take them out at night, and and that's in and out, and excuse me, So a full denture, we'll just say upper and lower. A lower denture is a nightmare for anyone. If you have a full lower denture, it is going to be extremely difficult. I'll just tell a quick little story about a lower denture, right? So my grandfather was a tough man, right? Born in the early 1914, the Spanish flu. He up in New York City. He was orphaned. He lost both his parents to the Spanish flu. Self-made guy, right? Built himself up from nothing. Tough as nails kind of dude, right? He gets up there in age, right? He's in his 80s. He had to have he had diabetes. He ended up having to have both his legs amputated, quadruple bypass heart surgery, all in his 80s, right? You never heard the guy complain about anything except his lower denture, right? Like, he hated it. He made his
Does
living.
it slip or does
It flops around.
Okay.
Nothing that holds it in. Your tongue kicks it around. There are the exceptions. 10% of people.
Do people
fine.
really keep them in a glass at the side of the bed?
Yeah. You have to keep them you have to keep them wet, and you have to clean them, and you have to put the product in there. You got to care for them because your denture itself can get a fungal infection.
Okay.
So you can't let that happen. So if you need all your teeth out, and you're looking for what's the most basic but tolerable treatment plan, it's a full traditional upper denture that comes in and out. There's a suction cup that happens at the roof of your mouth, and on the lower you need 2 implants placed with little buttons that help the denture snap down into place. So it's called a locator over denture. That's if you do that, then you're gonna be content. I'm gonna be content as your dentist because you're not gonna come in every day needing another adjustment and then eventually just get fed up with them. So that's but that's what you need to do. And then from there, okay, so you have more implants with more buttons, something that comes in and out, and then the level beyond that is something that actually screws into place. So it is more or less like a fancy denture. So it's hollowed out, and it's denture teeth with.
But aren't you going to get stuff stuck under it?
So that's exactly it. So that's what people don't know what they're saying yes to. So you see the teeth in a Jiffy, the Jiffy Lube teeth in a day thing, right? And I think teeth in a day might actually be a proprietary name brand. So I'm just saying teeth in a day generically, but. Yeah, you have something that's screwed into place, and the only way to truly clean underneath of it is you go to a dentist, and they unscrew it, and they clean it off. And they're not always pretty underneath there because you can't get to certain areas that well.
Oh,
so
gross.
So, yeah, so now how you design it makes it more cleansable, right? And then depending on how much bone someone has, that's another thing that you don't see on a commercial, right? So if somebody lost all their teeth because of cavities, and let's just say that they have a gummy smile, right? Or they just show gums, a little bit of gums when they smile. Oh, but I want the teeth in a day. Okay, you need to, you can't just, put them there because these things are thick. So what do? They need to lop off bone, sometimes a lot of your bone, in order to have those teeth that screw down in the same day. And that is the temporary phase, and you have to go through the second phase of making the permanent one, right? So you like everything, everyone's trying to sell something, right? And you need to know what you're saying yes to. So yeah, if you're saying yes to the teeth in a day, and you're not the right candidate for it, you might be doing something that's doing irreparable harm to yourself. Because another thing of dentistry, bonding, veneers, crowns, root canals, implants, and the fanciest of the stuff of all, right, with the implants, there's complications with everything, right? Like an implant, for example. I could promise everyone watching this, you will never get a cavity on one of your implants. Impossible. There's nothing to get a cavity on. But you can get periodontal disease. You can not have enough teeth and be a grinder, and love to chomp on ice and love to open bottles with your teeth, and you can break things, So, I mean, you got to keep in mind, teeth are small, implants are smaller. The screws that go into the implants are like, wristwatch style screws. They're tiny, tiny. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, and that's where I think, if you're making a major decision like that, look, if you're buying a car, like, check out a couple of dealerships, like get a couple opinions, like see what's going on, You ask 10 dentists, you get 20 opinions, right? And there might be more opinions out there. So I would say anytime someone's making a big decision.
What it seems to me is that any dentist, and I don't want to generalize, but I would say that if a dentist was sort of pushing a very aggressive implant process to somebody who had a lot of teeth that were in good condition, they might be in it for the money rather than the best interest of the patient. It seems that most dentists that I've spoken to, and I haven't spoken to a lot of dentists, but the dentists that I've been to have always been very aggressively trying to salvage the teeth that I have.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that also depends on when you were trained, what you were brought up in. There's, like, generally speaking, dentists are trained to save teeth, right? Like, we want to save your teeth. But if you're not comfortable in a certain procedure, you might, like, your own personal, like, bias might push you in one direction or another direction. I feel very fortunate that I'm trained in implants. I educated myself a lot in implants, so I see both sides. And this isn't something special for me. It's just like I know the value of implants. I also know the value of teeth, and I think that if someone is just like, oh yeah, let's get them out, and implants. Well, what about the idea of saving them? Okay, and oh yeah, we can say there's no problem, but the last guy said I need that out. Like if something that doesn't feel right, you need to just.
Well, is there a combination you can do?
You
can do some implants
there's
some
infinite options.
Caps and some veneers and
yeah, there's infinite options, and that's why I do think that one of the most important things is just establishing like a trusting relationship with your dentist. I think it's harder and harder to do these days. And honestly, I've had patients that have moved away, and they're like, Doc, could you help me find a new dentist? And I'm like, oh yeah, I know all the back channel secret dental Facebook groups that are a thing. That that's what you want to see. You want to really get bored? Look at my Facebook feed and see all the groups that all the dental groups that I'm like, oh, interesting, So, and I'm like trying to see, okay, maybe I could see from the other specialists, or I could ask one of the specialists. That's a nice little trick if you want to find who's a good dentist. Maybe go to a specialist office. Say you need full mouth implants, or you think you might need at least one implant, right? Sometimes if you go to the specialist first, the periodontist, right, and you ask them, hey, who should I go to restore my mouth, right? That's a nice way to kind of begin with the end in mind in some ways, because they have or even a dental laboratory, right? So they see everyone's work. So they have more dirty little secrets than anyone, right? Because you don't know. Sometimes the best, nicest dentist. Oh my! I love my dentist. I see him at the ball. I see him at jiu-jitsu, right? Well, why does everyone like this guy so much? Because he doesn't recommend treatment to anyone, So sometimes you'll see that patient come in, and you're like, you got a lot of stuff going on. The nice dentist who just retired, and not age dependent, that's just a nice guy. He's like, maybe we'll keep a watch on that. And I'm a watcher, right? I'll put a watch on something that someone else might say, oh, it needs treatment, because maybe it will need treatment, but if you have a little tiny thing, maybe it's not worth drilling into your tooth yet, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can delay that destructive process for as long as you can, that might be a win. And once you need it fixed, you need it fixed. But the point is, you just need to be able to trust someone. And just if you get vibes, you got to listen to your vibes, because the other side to that is you'll always find someone to tell you what you want to hear, right? So if you want to hear that veneers is the right option, and you get 10 opinions, and so one of those people will give you what you want. You know, it just might not be worth the fight, right? To like argue for the sake of, please value your enamel a little bit more, you know. So I would say you need to have a good exam, a thorough exam. You need to like and then from there schedule a consultation with that dentist, right? And then get your records and then get another opinion. I never want to do treatment on someone who doesn't want the treatment done. Like the worst thing, and I have to tell people things that they should have done, but if they don't want it done, like I get a second opinion, please. And then once you've either heard the same thing twice, or it's not quite clicking what the other person's saying, then and then you want to go great, because everything has risks, benefits, alternatives, and options, right? So you want to be able to trust the person who's doing something in your mouth. You said, let's face it, dentistry is painful in the beginning. I would say, let's face it, dentistry is invasive, right? Like you can, some things you could, you have a very gentle. We have some awesome hygienists, right? And look, sometimes you have to measure people's gums, and it's never going to be fun, right? So there are some things that are a little bit inevitably uncomfortable, but always invasive, always like right up in your face, and that's a very personal area, and yet we spend all day just like up in there,
Right. Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, you want to have a good relationship. I think that the technology helps to facilitate that. Like, I don't necessarily want to have to convince everyone that I'm a good ethical person who is going to treat you right. I want you to understand that I'm going to treat you right, because if click picture, look, this is what's going on, and there's room for some abuse there, right? Look at this scary dark silver filling, this black filling from hell. You could, some people can try to scare you, but you kind of know if someone's being a little sleazy, I don't know. I think that part, if you can look at something together, that's what I try to do is and this isn't something I invented, right? But I'm like your tour guide, taking you on a tour through your mouth.
Let me ask you two questions, two things that are sort of that I've wondered about for several decades. One, the difference between silver fillings and white fillings, because back in when I worked on Wall Street, and I had all my silver fillings taken out and put white fillings in because I was afraid of mercury or poisoning or neurologic issues from that. I got scared into believing that. I don't know whether or not that was true. And the second thing, and they're completely unrelated, but I didn't want to forget the topic, is how the hell do you pay for dental work? I mean, I don't know if you know that, obviously, but it's expensive, and I, I'm not going to tell you who the dental insurance provider was, but not too long ago we got dental insurance. I hadn't had dental insurance. I just paid out of pocket for the last 30, 40 years. Okay, but I got dental insurance, and it's a pretty well known, and I insurance company. And we've been paying, and so I said, well, to the dentist, I said, I want to, see if it, I want to get, whatever work I need. I don't know if the insurance will pay anything because it's fairly inexpensive in comparison to health insurance.
Right. Yeah.
So I gave the woman the information. She said, "Oh, it's not active." I was like, "What?" And so I called the insurance. No, it's active. I was like, "Well, what the hell is going on here?" It was very shady with the insurance company, whether or not I had coverage or not had coverage. I'm paying it every month. So I was like, and I don't like going to the dentist, and so I don't use it. So anyhow, so I have one silver amalgam fillings versus white fillings. And is there health concerns related to that? Because people in their 60s have a lot of silver fillings. And how do people finance it? And the other thing is gas versus Novocaine. Because that's sort of like a topic, whether, what your thoughts are on that, whether we get to it or not. So I'll pass the ball back to you.
Yeah, amalgam fillings, silver fillings, the metal fillings versus composites, right? So amalgam, they're called amalgams. They're an amalgamation of different metals, one of those being mercury. There is not a whole lot of evidence that it is released. In fact, the American Dental Association, so like the mainstream take on amalgams is like once they're placed and set, they're not releasing a measurable amount of mercury at all. There's some mercury release on placing them and on removing them. Amalgams are something that they're almost a victim of their own success. So they are very straightforward to actually place and to do, and they're not very technique sensitive. Okay, meaning it's hard to screw up an amalgam. Right, when you're the dentist placing it, and even if you don't do it great,
it's like filling a pothole. You're just stomping it in.
You're packing it in there, and people get very artistic, and you see some of these like military amalgams. You're like, whoa, like the thing's just a beautiful thing. I wouldn't touch it because as soon as I touch it, the thing's gonna crumble, and you're not gonna be able to build it up anymore. It's just like, just let it ride. But yeah, they're very easy to do. And even when you do them, they're going to last a while. So, pretty much they're hard to screw up, right? So, whereas composite fillings, amalgams also, they are not bonded to the tooth, right? So, there's a hole, you fill up the hole, right? Whereas composite fillings are super technique sensitive. I do 10 steps, very meticulous, and you have to keep them perfectly dry and isolated. And if they get wet while you're doing it, it's like trying to epoxy a wet floor, right?
Is that when they put the light in your mouth?
So that's when, So that's when they cure the light. Yeah, they cure it exactly. That light hardens the stuff inside of it. So a well done composite filling, a white filling, will blow an amalgam out of the water, right? But it's hard to get a well-done composite filling sometimes, right? Because there's amalgam also has a natural slight expansion, right? So if you're talking little micro gaps, which bacteria are tiny, right? Whereas composite has a slight contraction, so pulls away from the tooth, meaning gaps form. So there's a million things I've done, a million courses on it, and it's crazy, right? To do a good white filling. So, frankly, in my own mouth, if I had the option between a poorly done amalgam filling and a poorly done composite filling, I would go with the amalgam filling because it's going to still work. With that said, amalgams have pretty much fallen out of vogue almost entirely. Besides the baggage with them, right? So in a lot of countries in Europe, they're banned, they're outlawed. You're not allowed to place amalgam fillings, right? So that says something. And that's not the American Dental Association's position, and they've done a million lit reviews on it and whatever. But still, pretty sure Sweden, there's quite a few countries in Europe, and it might even be an EU-wide thing.
What about these guys who have grills, gold grills, or the crazy stuff? I don't even know. Is that a real dental procedure?
So there's removable grills that people take in and out, but people a big thing right now is people getting all their teeth crowned, and there's this one dude who actually I know the lab guy who did it. He took a 10-carat diamond and embedded it into all of these actual crowns, so the teeth were prepared and permanently cemented on. So this guy's got gold teeth with 10 carats worth of diamonds in them, like, and that's altering his actual teeth. You know, it's like body alteration, right? Like splitting your tongue to make you like a lizard man. You know, it's pretty wild. Grills can come in and out, but a lot of people are doing like the real thing. You know, it's crazy. But gold is good. Like gold, like we love gold. Like dentists, if every dentist could use gold, like it's the best.
I didn't think they did that since World War II.
Oh well, they don't, because it's like, you know, you're the Wall Street guy. You probably know better than me what gold is an ounce, right? So it's just financially not viable. Like you know, this could. If I've answered some of the amalgam questions, this can kind of segue into paying for things, right? So the lab fees on a gold crown are going to be sometimes more than what an insurance company's like allotted.
Oh, they're not paying for gold. No,
yeah,
I get it.
So the materials themselves like kind of drive it. But really, what happened with amalgam fillings, like no one wants a metal filling in their mouth, right? Like it's just, if you could have the option of like something you can't tell is there or something that's there, like, well, yeah, like just something that looks like a tooth, right? So what kind of happened with like white fillings and why they became so initially popular was just that they're just makes sense. So it was really the patient, the consumer, that drove this at the time. You know, unfortunately, when you had it done, it was probably an inferior restoration to what you had, and scaring people into something is like you don't want to do that, especially something that's not like kind of like mainstream accepted. You know what I mean? Like scare people into taking their blood pressure medication or losing 10 pounds. Like that's one thing, but like scaring someone into something that you're like the science is definitely not conclusive on. That's a totally different kind of conversation. So, the technology of the white fillings is much better at this point. So if you do them properly and you're isolated and you're dry and you do all the steps, beautiful. Like all day. That's what I do all day. I don't place amalgam fillings. Like I don't even have the thing to place them, because it's like A, no one wants them, and then B, it does inevitably bring up this conversation of like most people are going to feel there's just so much stuff out there on the internet that it's like, you know, it's kind of like they're kind of like sullied, you know.
Right, okay, gotcha.
But adults now who've had these amalgam fillings their whole lives, this is where they're a victim of their own success. That's like 50 years of expanding, contracting. So what I see all the time in my office is people breaking teeth, you know. And if you've never broken a tooth, you might not even know that that's a thing that can happen. Well, you know, I pulled my hamstring running for my first pass of flag football for the first time in like 20 years. Didn't know that was going to happen. It can happen, but teeth can break. So stay away from crunchy food, especially if you have some older silver fillings in your mouth, because teeth get these cracks in them. And yeah, the cracks is a whole different ball, you know, a whole different world. But bottom line is, take away crunchy food breaks teeth. So be careful about crunching hard food all the time. And a lot of these teeth have these big old amalgams in it that are cracked, that none of them look pretty after 50 years. I mean, you know, I know I'm not going to look, you know, it's outlived like 5 of your cars, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but then when you get in there, it's like, oh man, sometimes they're like really, really beat up and you need crowns instead of just a new filling, you know, that kind of thing. And since crowns are more expensive than fillings, I'll talk about some of the financial side of things. So dentistry is expensive, for sure, right? There's no two ways around it, because rendering quality dentistry, it is expensive. You know, like my profit margins are like they're nothing to brag about. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like, oh, my overhead's only 15%. Like no, like your overhead's like sitting there. The average dental overhead, I think, is up to like 76%, right? So and that's not including doctor compensation, right? So if the average dentist is paid like let's just say 30% of what's done is going to the doctor, right, to the dentist, that means 70% of that is going towards rent, overhead of your materials, your utilities, your team, right?
How's malpractice insurance in the dental field?
It's not a make or break expense. It's I'd say relative to everything, it's a kind of a small line item. So it's not like anesthesiology where it's like a major thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not the big thing. The big thing is like attracting and paying for like good team members, right? Like well trained team members.
Well, I saw on your website you have a big team. I mean, I saw the 10 people in scrubs.
Yeah, we do. It takes a lot of.
How many dentists?
So it's me and Dr. Johnstone, only 2 dentists. There was a third dentist, and she moved to Maryland to be closer to her husband's family. And Doc, you're always welcome back. I'm sorry, Phil, but always Dr. Jordan did beautiful work, so she's always welcome at our practice. But so we have 2 docs, 3 hygienists, and 3 to 4 assistants. We are hiring if there's any RDAs out there.
How many chairs do you have?
8 operatories altogether.
What does that mean?
A treatment room, so chairs.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you could have 8 dentists theoretically.
No, the way that it works is so 2 of those rooms. Well, actually, 3 of those rooms now are they're dedicated like hygiene only. So there's 3 rooms that are like for the hygienists, and they're not even equipped the same way. So I can't do a filling in 3 of those rooms. And then 5 of those rooms are fully equipped to do any kind of dentistry that.
And so what do you move from room to room with the patient?
Yeah, so the way the scheduling works is like I'm single booked. So a lot of offices, and you'll get the feel for them pretty quickly. But they're double booked or triple booked, meaning the dentist has like multiple patients in the same time slot that they're doing dentistry on, which is different than. If you have hygienists, you have to break away and do exams, and so you might feel like where's he going? What's he doing? Another coffee break? They're doing exams, and it's a flaw that is like deeply baked into how we do dentistry in America. I hate leaving a patient that I'm working on, and then I have to do exams. Now, I love to do exams, and I love to see my patients and say, hi, how have you been? And let's take a look. How's everything feel? And a new patient, welcome to the office, and I give them full attention. But you're one person, and you can't be in 2 places at the same time. So the solution for it is what they've done in the UK, and tell me if this sounds nice to you, is, you go to your cleaning appointment, and you get a cleaning. And then you go to your exam appointment and you get that 15 minute checkup on 2 separate days, right? My sister, she lived in the UK. She was going to the dentist for a year and a half. Every 6 months she's getting her teeth cleaned. She gets a call from their office. You're overdue for your exam. She said, what are you talking about? I go to the dentist every 6 months. No, you're a year and a half overdue. No, you only had your cleanings. You haven't had the dentist come and look at your teeth.
Okay.
So it just wouldn't work here. We have our new patients come in they don't come in for a cleaning on their first appointment. We had to change it because when you come in for your first appointment, it is an exam and your x-rays, because you just don't know what someone's going to walk in with. And if you want to do a thorough exam, it's going to take a chunk of time to do that. Gather all the data, properly measure the gums, take all the pictures that you got to do, and then explain to someone what's going on. So we if you're 20 years old, you don't have any issues, we'll do the cleaning. The hygienists are they'll initiate that appointment, and they're not going to dilly dally, but. Someone comes in, it's been 2 years since they've been at the dentist, or, I need a new dentist, my last one moved or retired or whatever, sold their practice, and it's kind of changed, or, whatever the case is, you don't know what you're going to get. So you got to do a thorough exam. So, but meanwhile, you have a 9-year-old kid that you're treating, for fillings in the other room. So it's a fundamental frustration as a dentist for wanting to be everywhere at once and give people the proper time. And that's one of the things that you see is like people are getting busier and busier and busier. So, there is I would say, when you invited me to be on here and you said dirty little secret, I think that one of the dirty little secrets of dentistry is that to a large extent, you ultimately are going to get what you pay for, like anything else in life. So if you have a dental insurance that reimburses like a very small amount to the dentist, it looks attractive up front, but the reality of it is our overhead, the fixed costs are going to be the same, right? The rent's the rent. You're going to have to staff your day appropriately every day.
You're only getting 3 minutes.
then it's like, and I don't practice like that, and it's probably one of the reasons that I'm not in it for the money, right? I'm in it to do something that I love and provide for my family. But I don't have any disillusionment that I'm going to be riding a yacht. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, look.
I mean, do you just not accept certain dental insurances because
there are there's certain ones that as a private office I don't even see how you can, right? So pretty much like your state insurances, like the reimbursements are they're so low that you just
you're gonna lose money.
You can't not cut your costs. Like you can't not do that. And for me, I have certain lines that I just won't cross. Like, and once an insurance reimbursement will be so low that I'm like losing money. Like you're essentially paying someone to do treatment on them. It can't not have an influence.
Then the practices are going to stack services. They're going to say, "Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that." You're going to, all of a sudden they're getting a root canal when they don't need a root canal. And if they can convince the insurance company that you need one, even if you don't need one, they're playing games.
And everyone. I think that the majority of dentists are ethical people. But I also know that people, human beings, just respond to incentives. And if you have the wrong incentive in place over time, your back's hurting, you're working long hours, you're stressed out, no one's happy, like your team's not happy, your patients aren't happy, no one's getting you're going to respond to these incentives in some way. And it might be subtle or it might be blatant, right? Like I like to hope and think and close my eyes while I'm riding a bicycle that dentists aren't going to recommend a root canal that's really not appropriate. But I do a lot of second opinions for people, and I do see some stuff that I don't like seeing, right? So, and if you have an incentive structure that's set up that way, I would say most they call PPO, like preferred provider organization insurances, are going to at least get you into a ballpark of like decent dentistry. There are some that are just like tougher than others, and I definitely won't name names of insurance companies because they are litigious and they will go after a small dental office who financially can't defend themselves against it. So I will not mention the name of the one that will typically come to mind. And they had the best reputation. They were very pro everyone, and since then it's kind of been kind of taken over by the money people, right?
Okay, yeah, I got you. I think we're talking about the same organization that screwed me.
and providers are leaving in droves. It's a big thing because, I mean, look, the thing that's tough is that look at the last 4 years. Like, look at the inflation of the last 4 years, and what does inflation really mean, right? It means like things cost more, so you have to pay employees more, a business owner perspective, right? If things cost more, then you have to charge more, right?
And if reimbursements aren't
And if
keeping
you
up,
can't charge
you're
more,
screwed.
eventually it's a recipe to go out of business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when your rates are fixed because you voluntarily, no one forced any dentist to sign up for an insurance, right? So you voluntarily accepted that. But factors change, and if you can't alter your price, your only option is ultimately to get out of network with them. So I would say it's complicated. It's really a deep rabbit hole. If you are a patient that's calling up a dental office and you have a dental insurance and you want to know if they take your dental insurance, ask this question: are you in network with X, Y, and Z? And if you're that same patient, call up your insurance company and ask them, do you have out-of-network benefits, right? So there's this game that, I hate it, and there's some big consulting groups for dentists that it's pretty much designed like, how do you trick someone into thinking that you're in network with their insurance, right? Like more or less, like, hi, I have XYZ insurance, do you guys take that? Oh, we have lots of patients with that insurance, yeah, could we get you scheduled today or tomorrow, right? So there's these ways that they're like manipulating because people don't know the exact question to ask. So did the receptionist lie? Oh no, they didn't lie. And a lot of insurances have out-of-network benefits, so they will pay the same $1,500 towards your dental treatment or whatever it is. Now, the rates are not controlled by the dental insurance company, so typically if you're going out of network, for most insurance companies, and there are some exceptions, but for most insurance companies, net, you'll probably end up paying more money, right? But if you're a new patient and you want to make an appointment with a new dental office, any office, are you in network with this company? Yes or no? Will you submit the claims on behalf of the patient? Yes or no? Right. So a lot of offices that are out of network, they'll be out of network benefits, so you'll still be paid. Like the dental.
Well, your deductible might be gigantic.
Yeah, and it's not even it's not deductible. It's just you're pretty much going to run through your maximum quicker. So, especially since you're in the medical world, it's even more like bizarre. But dental insurance, it's not really dental insurance. It's like a discount plan mixed with an allowance, right? So average dental insurance, you get $1,500, let's just say, and that goes towards your cleanings are covered at 100%, your fillings are covered at 80%, and your crowns are covered at 50%, right? That's kind of like an average, medium of the road insurance. So there's not usually a huge deductible, and it's usually like, okay, so you have a crown and it costs $1,500. They'll pay $750 towards it, something along those lines. Now, if you have 3 crowns, they're only going to pay up for that first $1,500, and then the rest of it's out of your pocket. Right, so, but you're still at their discounted rate, at the insurance company's rate. So, that's where people save money with dental insurance is the amount that they pay towards it, as well as the discounted fee schedule.
Okay,
right?
Got it. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So that's something that is, but it gets really dirty, right? Because there's all right. If I can go on like a 3.5 minute explanation of how dental insurance works, I think it's very helpful to know. So let's just pretend, Jim, you're my patient and I'm your dentist, right? And you have a dental insurance through your employer, right? So there's 2 people that are physically in the room, but there are me and you, but there are 2 other entities that are influencing like what your if finances are a contributing factor, right? So if finances play a role, and in most people's lives they do, right? There are two other influences that are happening, right? So you're the number one most important person in that room. I'm the number two most important person in that room. But the things that are influencing the financials are the relationship that your employer has with your dental insurance company. Okay? So a dental insurance company is like any other company. They want to sell something, right? So, and an employer, they want to attract employees. So if you're offering dental insurance to an employee, it's like, whoa, not just medical, but dental too? Like, this is a great company, right? So there's only one person, and touched my heart, who literally called our office before accepting a job because to see if we're in network with the insurance that this job is offering. People don't make life job decisions based on the dental insurance by and large. Medical insurance, yes, right? Like, this is a major part of people's expenditures. So if you're an employer, that's like a cherry on top. Dental insurance too. So most employers, and especially in this market where, or anytime it's maybe in this market's a little bit different. You're trying to differentiate yourself as a hiring company, but you just want to offer the dental insurance. Do you really need to offer them gold, platinum, silver, gold, like fancy package, diamond crown package? Probably not. You just want to say, oh, dental insurance, cool. Have a couple options, great. So the insurance company is trying to sell something, and the employer's probably going to be incentivized to want to buy the cheapest thing possible, and the insurance company wants to sell something, so they make a deal and they're trying to drive the price down. An insurance company will make money by having premiums collected, so from your employer and from the person directly, and paying less premiums, paying less to dentists out than or they're collecting, right? Like, that's where they'll make money. And if they're not for profit, their CEOs are probably doing pretty well, So there's money being made. Let's put it that way. So you have two entities that are trying to drive the ultimate cost down, and price and quality are just intrinsically related to each other. It's just a very hard thing to separate. You are going to expect your Mercedes-Benz to function better, not just be a better brand, but function better than your 2008 Kia, right? 2024 Kias are pretty nice these days, but so people feel ripped off when they buy a fancy Jaguar that like breaks down, like that's like because they're paying for this expensive thing, they expect to get quality, right? So so if you're driving the price down, it just invariably will ultimately affect the quality net. So that's something that I just like to try to like get out there. And it's such a complicated concept, and no one gives a rat's ass about like all this behind the scenes stuff that's happening. It's like, no, like, doc, like, how much does this crown cost, right? Like, and it's normal. It's all normal. So one thing that people can do that they don't always think about is they can actually talk to their HR department and say, like, my insurance is like, I went to this office and like the thing wasn't even like active, like, and yeah, if I find out that there's like a missing tooth clause, the heck's that? Like, did you ever read your contract to see what a missing? Do you even know what? I barely know about some of these things. Like, oh, there's a 6-month waiting period. Oh, there's a 6-month waiting period for this type of procedure, but not that type of procedure. So they will also make money by denying claims, delaying payment on claims, and that's where like the dirtiness kind of comes in from. Because as a dental office, we don't have we have a contract with them. Like, we just have to honor these fees and submit the claims to them. But that's it. We don't work for them. We're not like responsible to call the offices up and find out what your benefits are. We do that because it's a service to the patient. But it's like, like they're a totally separate company. But if you end up having to pay for that full crown, because as it turns out, the crown was done 9 years ago, and that insurance had a 10-year replacement period, and now it's like you get the bill for the full amount. You're going to be mad at me. You're going to be mad at the office. Like, what the heck? Like, how come you guys didn't know? It's like, well, there was no record on file. Like, whatever. Like, we didn't know. So it's and there's solutions, and you can do a pre-auth, and asterisk does not guarantee payment. A benefit. Like, so there's all kinds of things about it, but I would say, if you ask your insurance company whether they have out-of-network benefits, and if you call up the office, ask them if they're in-network, and if they're not in-network, do you submit the claims, on my behalf? I think if you do that, you can go to like whatever office you want, and just know that if you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more to get a little bit more time and attention and quality, and that's, I think, for the most part, kind of true. And of course, beware of the silver-tongued folks out there, because there are people with high price and low quality. Like that. That's the thing. If you put all of your money into your marketing campaign and not into your quality, that's But generally speaking, it will usually follow that trajectory. So that's been my experience, not just life experience, but I spend a lot of time on Facebook forums, right? And you have two types of dentists that are posting on these forums. There are the dentists that are bragging about how low their overhead is and how much money they make, and you have the dentists who are showing their work and bragging about their work and showing how great their work is. And they're not the same dentists. Right, like they're not the same ones. So, and then you're like, oh, you see this beautiful Instagram picture of a tooth all close up, and like you want to learn about that. You want to take their CE, and you want to like go and then you say like, oh, like you raise your hand, like, how much time do you allot for this procedure? It's like, oh, that filling, like 3.5 hours, and like so that's why they're doing all these crazy steps and crazy intricacies, and it's just not practical or real world. Oh, and how much did that filling cost? That filling was like $1,500 for a filling. And you're like, wait, like what is happening? And then you'll go to that other one, and you're like, okay, how do you manage your overhead so great?
It's like one of my wife's cakes. She makes these gorgeous, beautiful cakes, but she doesn't charge anybody. And it's like, how could you charge? I have to charge $500 for the fucking cake. It's just impossible to recoup a reasonable return on one of these masterpieces she creates, because she spends, it's like, can you make me a birthday cake? Oh, she's like, no problem. And I'm like, it's like, I'm like, you just spent like $400 on ingredients of crazy like ingredients, and it took like 2 days of our kitchen being out of whack for her to give a 6-year-old a birthday cake. I'm like, oh, and I go, why don't you charge? And she goes, how can you charge?
Yeah.
What you need to charge?
Well, it would almost
$800 for a little birthday cake.
Right. It would almost like take away the joy that she gets, because it's like she knows it's like a true gift. Like she's like giving someone something beautiful, something special, something unique and irreplaceable. And
you're talking about the cake forever. I mean, oh my God.
Right.
It's just unbelievable. Right. Okay, so we're talking about highly addictive cakes here. Why don't we close this out talking about medications and maybe some goofy sort of experiences. I mean, I've worked in the ER doing conscious sedations of patients with sort of hypnotics that where I'm like, I remember this one girl. I'm like, you are not going to remember what we're talking about. And she goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, tell me something that you would not tell a stranger. And she told me about this relationship, and her mom was there, and you were laughing about it. And so she goes and gets her, I think she had a dislocated shoulder. She goes and gets it popped back in the ER, in the OR, and she comes back, and we're talking. And she goes, who are you? I'm your nurse. I'm Jim. And good to meet you. I go, well, we met. We had a conversation. And so I told her a story, and she goes, no. And then her mom is laughing hysterically. It was hysterical. But I'm sure you have some experiences. Somebody going to the dentist there's, I guess, laughing gas, which is nitrous oxide, I guess, and then you've got Novocaine. Are those the only two drugs that people are? Do you get people that you have to give them a little like Xanax or something before they hit the chair because they're just a nervous wreck, or and I didn't ask you about one of the most important topics, getting bit, because that's always my cure, and that I would never want to be a dentist because I do not want to get my 6-year-old bites me, but I do not want to get bit. And do you have some biting stories? So those topics are very interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, you get definitely get twice shy, right? So so for the biting thing, what you got to be careful about is some people just really like to talk, and so what I had to be careful about, what my mom always would say to me, like, now Richard, don't be one of those dentists that talks to people when your hands are in their mouth. And my reply to her is like, Mom, that's like the only kind of dentist there really is. If you don't talk to them when your hands are in their mouth, you're never going to talk to anyone. So, but some people will automatically reply to you when your hands are in their mouth. So some of the bites are self-induced, because I probably shouldn't have asked such a engaging question, So, hey, so when you do this, like I got a bite there. But no, you kind of, like, some people like this have a little bit less jaw control, it's usually not as bad as people think. You get like someone like accidentally closes a little bit, and I gotta say, knock on wood, I haven't gotten any bites that really are like memorable. Now, my wife, when she was a kid, she bit her dentist pretty bad and got yelled at, and she reminds me of that. So if I get out of line, I do. Like, she does remind me that she bit her dentist, and that I gotta watch myself, because she's probably the only patient that would go after it. Really getting a good bite. But yeah, so biting, you get quick fingers, you get a quick draw, so to speak. As far as medications, I kind of joke and say, like, we should have like a Skittle bowl in the front with like 0.25 milligrams of Xanax, in the front. Everyone just takes one right when they walk in, because most people are a little bit tense, even if you're not. It's like before you take off on a flight, right? Like, you can cut the tension in the air, and even if you're not like someone panicking, you're like, some people are chill, totally 100% chill.
I'm looking at the wings. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the condition of the plane?
Yeah, so some people you can see it, and some people you can't, right? So no, the most commonly prescribed ones is like a Xanax and like a Valium. Valium's like longer lasting. There's the Ativan. So. And then if you do any combination, so Novocaine has no sedative effect. It's just like a local numbing. Novocaine actually isn't even used anymore. It's like there's like 5 different types of canes out there that are like more effective. But we people just call it Novocaine. So Novocaine does numbing. So if you're going to do laughing gas, you would also do Novocaine. But if you're doing laughing gas and Valium, anytime you have 2 agents together, you're in like a deeper state of sedation. So there's like, you have to have an oral sedation permit. So if you're kind of, which is a good thing to remind people to tell their dentist. Sometimes people will leave things out of the medical history form. You're my dentist. Why do you have to know if I'm on a blood thinner? It's like, well, I mean, you're in for an extraction. It's going to bleed. Like, tell your dentist the full medical history. Like, it might be more relevant than you realize. But yeah, when you have combination effects, that's when like things can like potentiate each other more. Like just kind of make the effects like more than either one. It's like, it's not like 1 + 1. It's like or not. It's not 3 + 3. It's like 3 × 3 kind of thing. So yeah. So those are the big ones. And then beyond that, you're getting into like some deeper sedation. You're probably gonna have an IV. And it's probably going to be a special dentist or a dental specialty, which exists now, called dental anesthesiology. It's really cool. This specialty should like be huge, and it's pretty niche right now, but there are anesthesiologists who did a 3-year after dental school residency with anesthesiologists, and they are wicked talented at doing nasal intubation, and they have all their rescue gear right there in an office, and they'll come out and they will like knock someone out, like out, and you can do whatever dentistry you have to do, and it's totally monitored, and you don't have to be like looking over your shoulder like at someone's like pulse ox, like while you're doing the procedure. But it's kind of a thing trying to get like medical to pay for it. It's like very difficult to do that. So you're usually looking at like $500-$600 an hour, out of pocket. So if you're doing like an all day thing, it's going to tack on a good $5K to it easily.
So they're taking a lot of kids to the OR now.
Yeah.
A lot of toddlers to first grade, somewhere in that area. It seems like, is that a thing? Is that necessary? I mean, I guess they're pulling some teeth, but they're also doing some bonding. What's your opinion on that? I mean, it just seems extraordinary. Like my 6-year-old went to the OR and had a tooth pulled, but he's also very difficult. When the when the pediatrician wanted to examine him, he hid it under the table. He's not a pushover. He questions everything. He wants to know who you are, what do you want from me,
Yeah.
And this isn't the way to Wawa, I mean, he's got an opinion on everything. And I know my ex-wife's daughter, same age, 6-year-old, and went in, had a tooth pulled, no gas, but nothing. The kid just sat there and went, no big deal, didn't give a shit.
It's wild.
I mean, how many? I mean, do you think it's sort of a financial thing, or I mean, it doesn't seem on baby teeth it makes sense to do a lot of work.
So
when the tooth's going to fall out, unless you're going to lose.
So there's a lot, just a lot of like different like points. So just as far as going to the OR, right? Everything that we do in medicine, as you know, is like a cost benefit like analysis, right? So like a tooth infection, like you said earlier, it's like an infection in your bone. It could be very serious. It could be dangerous, and sometimes you have to, right? And a 2-year-old, like, you're not going to be able to do that like under normal conditions. Mm-hmm. So we're like, this is more like you're going to see this with like the extreme like baby bottle rot, like little kids, like they'll rot all their teeth out, and it's dangerous, and you have to address that. And the benefit is almost certainly worth the risk. Now, my daughter had to get tubes put in her ears at a pretty young age, and I'm doing some like research and seeing some stuff like in literature about like the negative effects of sedating, like deeply sedating or like totally knocking out, like under a certain age, like under the age of 3, right? And so I'm asking all kinds of questions about this, and what level of sedation are you doing, and things like that. So my professional approach to it is, God bless the specialists, because I don't have to be in that situation to really make those tough calls. I try to treat everyone the way that I would want my kids treated. So we were talking about like whether parents come back in the room during a treatment, and just like that was like a wild thing to you,
and this is before we did the talk, I asked him and I told him the situation where my 10-year-old had not really had anything go on. He's never had gas before, never really had any dental exposure whatsoever. And I wanted to accompany, my son, and he's very well mannered and very well balanced, but I didn't know how he was going to react, and I wanted to accompany him while he was basically being intoxicated. He was going to be, not know what's going on, and I don't know this dentist from anybody. I don't really,
from
nobody.
Adam,
I was like, I don't. My first inclination is to not trust somebody that I don't know when I'm
Yeah.
my job.
Your Papa Bear kicked in.
Yeah,
It's like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, I want to be there. If the guy had treated 3 or 4 of my kids over a 4 or 5 year period,
Right.
and I was like, oh, hey Joe, hey, what's going, this is okay, fine. It's I'll be on my phone in the car, not a big deal. But their policy was no parents in the back, and I'm like, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
In that position, it was very difficult, and so we switched dentists, and it was the dentist, in their name was it was for children that had difficulties. I don't want to give you the name because it's going to give away who the practice is, but they were specially geared for children that had difficulties in development. And I was thinking, you of all people should have an overriding, concern, that what the parents would think and the comfort level of them and what you might be getting yourself into. And I understand, from being, an EMT, ER nurse, where some parents are a pain in the ass. And, quite frankly, I would love to work in pediatrics if it weren't for the parents, because a lot of parents are just very difficult to manage, and they want to hold the child while the child's getting their face sutured from a pit bull bite, and there's no way you can let the parent hold,
right.
As you're putting an IV in or getting a child sutured. You just tell them, I'm going to hold, you can be there, you can sit down on the sideline and hold her hand, but you cannot hold her still, because parents always let go.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible experience.
It's the most natural thing. It's like, you don't know the environment, the trust hasn't been established, and it's like, as a father myself, I wouldn't feel good in that situation. I wouldn't want my son to just be brought back in a situation where I have no idea what's going on back there, right?
Worse, it was toward the tail end of COVID, and they wanted us to wait in the car.
Yeah.
I said I'm not doing this, and I found a different dentist, and explained the situation, and to the new dentist, and they said, absolutely, you come on in, it's not an issue whatsoever.
Yeah. So that is absolutely a thing, and I have an easy cop out, right? Is that I get to refer people to a pediatric dentist, but they're the ones that have to actually do the treatment, and there's this just reality that kids typically do better when their parents aren't there, right? So I don't have to be in that situation very often, because I feel like if I had to not have a parent there, it means that I'm probably struggling to manage the situation, and I should be referring them to someone who's trained in pediatric dentistry. So I get to kick that can a little bit down the road to someone else, but it's a normal thing for a parent. We want to protect our kids, and we hear all these crazy stories, and it's just a very unsettling thing. So, but it does have this these two fundamentally different perspectives, and what I would probably suggest to that that dentist is, look, if this is your guys' policy, you need to be communicating this for all the reasons why, and so that someone can make that decision before they're put in that situation. Because now it's very, now it's a bad situation, right? Now it's you're your Papa Bear's there kicking in, and they're oh, this is just how we do it. This is just normal, and this is not normal. You're taking my kid to some place that I've never even seen before. So, I mean, there was actually a situation at our office where, it was very, very similar thing, and it was not for anything crazy. It was for one of the hygienists doing little sealants on a kid's tooth, which is no numbing or anything like that. but the kid was a little bit difficult, like in the chair, and like that was noticed during an exam, and so during the sealants, the mom was asked to not come back there with the kid, and the situation came to my attention, and I told everyone at the office, because unfortunately I just wasn't there for the exam, and I wasn't there for the sealants part. That's something that the hygienists do, and I told everyone, look, if you feel like you need to ask the parent to not come in the room, that means that we should just refer them to a pediatric dentist. It's just that simple. Because it means that you feel like in order to maintain control of the situation, the parent needs to not be in the room. That means like that control aspect is not firmly established, and that's when things get a little bit haywire. Because as a dentist, and I let all my parents come into the room with me. Like I feel more comfortable personally with the parent being there. This way, there's no room for any, did the dentist say something weird, or like you get like bits and pieces of what the kid says or remembers or whatever, and like, wait, what happened? Like, and that would just drive me bananas if I was like already on edge about it, and like, what the heck actually happened back there? So yeah, come back with me, like we'll do it like there. When you have a parent that's over your shoulder and visibly making the child more nervous, that's a difficult place to be, like as the treating dentist.
Oh yeah, and in the ER, I mean, I've never. The only situations where we're going to kick a parent out is if we're intubating, where they think their kid's dead, okay, or if the kid is dead, or if we're putting a line into a bone. Or if we're if the kid's like leg or arm is degloved, or if the face there's like a bone sticking out of the jaw, or if it's a trauma where it's just some of the residents are leaving because they feel nauseated, or a situation like that, or if it's a self-induced injury, or it could be an overdose, if it's a teenager, if it's a drug thing with a teenager, the parents get kicked out because, we don't know the situation, if there's some abuse involved, situations like that. But if it's a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, and the kid, broke their arm, or has a fishing hook in their
traumatizing
face,
enough. Let mommy be there.
Usually, it's a comforting. You want everybody to be comfortable.
Right, exactly.
But if it's a scary situation for the staff, then we need to sort of lock it down, and then sort of take care of the staff too, because there's situations where I had a trauma situation in UMDNJ. Where it was a big trauma case, and there was 9 residents that came in, and every single one of them left. It was so bad. It was. Yeah. I'm laughing because I'd be crying right now, because it was the most horrific situation you've ever seen. But every one of them was so excited because it was a gigantic case. But every one of them left because there was.
It's just too much. It's like
it was way too much for anybody to unsee, and pieces of bone and everywhere. It was a horrific situation where you couldn't have a family member. Obviously,
right.
When the staff can't handle it, you can't have family there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, anyhow, I think we covered a lot of stuff. If there's anything else you want to say in closing, I'm very happy. I think it went well. It certainly, you allowed me to ask a lot of questions I've been sitting on for decades, and made me. I'm terrified of the dentist. I'm embarrassed to go to the dentist. There's all sorts of one. I don't want to spend. Also I don't want to spend the money. But and I'm thinking, how am I going to finance this? Is it Jesus, this is like buying a it's like buying a new automobile. It seriously is a situation that you kind of some people put a lot of thought. I don't just step out because I have a toothache and buy a new car. You know what I mean? It's just, and that's what you're looking at sometimes. But I think this helps people understand and think about alternatives a little bit, and especially I think the most valuable part is really protecting your teeth, saving what you've got, and thinking about that. I was thinking, because I've had some dental work, I've had some teeth pulled, and situations like that where I was thinking, oh, I'll just go implants, and now I'm thinking, oh, do I want stuff stuck under? It gives you a pause for sort of reconsideration, anyhow. The offshore dental work, okay, because that's something that you see right now. I see it all over the place. Go to Panama, go to Mexico, go to Costa Rica, and get this $50,000 procedure done for $17,000.
Yeah. The thing I just don't fully understand about it is, like, if I place an implant, like, I'm doing a 2-week post-op, right? Like there's like dentistry.
You can't do that by its own.
It's not like, yeah, right, exactly. It's not like a one and done thing. So I think it comes back to the idea of, like, you end up getting what you paid for, and there's I'm sure a lot of success stories, and there's also a lot of things that end up on the dental Facebook postings, of like, just like, ooh, look what walked into my office, So, yeah, I think that no matter what, if you have family in Costa Rica and someone's had great work done by this specific person that other people know, and you can, like, but it comes back to, like, I would say, look at your dental, your dentist, your dental office as like a relationship, and because if there's no relationship, there's no trust. If there's no trust, they always assume the worst. Like, you want to be a partner with your dentist. You guys are doing this together. You're in it together, and you want to be on the same team. So if you can achieve that because you have family in France. I was that foreign dentist, right? I was that foreign dentist for my father-in-law, right? So he came in, and we actually did quite a bit of complex work, and it gave me a very special view of what patients go through, because when you have to do major dental work throughout someone's entire mouth, you usually don't have to have Christmas dinner with them the next day, right? So when you see, like, very up close and personal what someone goes through, yeah, it was probably the most complex case that I've ever done, and it was made more complex by the fact that he lives in France. He lives in France, so it was when he was visiting. So I had these very strict timelines to do everything, and it was extremely stressful. And if there was anything that was a little bit, like, not great, and we ran out of time, that's it, right? And I had an ace up my sleeve because my wife's best friend is also a dentist. I think she might be a little bit of a dentophile, but there was one situation where you do something on someone with a full denture called a reline, where you're rebasing this denture. And you place it into someone's mouth, and you make sure, like, the impression looks all good, and you send it to the lab, and they process it, and you come back and you put it in. This is all happening as he's going to the airport, and this was some years ago. But I placed the reline, and the way that he bit down, it kind of tilted the whole thing forward, but you couldn't see it at the time and then the impression looked beautiful. The suction cup was great. When I went and put the thing in on the way to the airport, the whole rebasing was tilted down, and it made him have, like, a really gummy smile in this, like, transitional denture. And you're just looking at it and you can't get it back. You're like calling up Delphine. You got like, you know, you're gonna have to like help me with this because, and so what are you gonna do if someone goes away and there's a complication? Walk into, you know, the oral surgeon down the street. Hey, shucks, you know, you mind fixing this person's work? It's high risk, and I guess you could say high reward if it comes out good.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say be able to drive there.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming in and telling your story a little bit, and want to let everybody know, again, it's Dr. Richard Weber, and your office is in East Bumfuck? No.
Hey, I'm a Tabernacle guy here.
Tabernacle.
Yeah.
I have never even heard of Tabernacle.
You gotta come visit sometime. It's beautiful this time of year.
Is it?
It is beautiful.
Is it in Pine Barrens or?
Yeah, it's the gateway to the Pines.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Tabernacle. It's a hidden gem.
Hidden gem.
Yeah.
Tabernacle, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And that's the name of your practice?
It's Love Your Smile Dental Center.
Okay.
In
Great.
Tabernacle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Jim. It was awesome. Anyone that's this curious about dentistry, you know, you got a special place in my heart because I could talk about this for days and days and days. This is what I love. So I appreciate you having me here tonight.
Okay. So, again, thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode. If you made it this far, Dirty Little Secrets, and have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.